She'll come crawling back when she fails, my dad laughed, so I built a 1.2B empire and let him find out at my sister's engagement party. He turned pale when I spoke. My name is Alex Chen, I'm 32 years old, and I'm about to walk into my family's biggest business event of the year. They have no idea I'm coming. They have no idea who I've become. And they definitely have no idea that in about an hour, everything they think they know about their failure of a family member is going to blow up in their faces. If you've ever been the family disappointment, the one they whisper about at holidays, the one whose achievements get ignored while everyone else gets celebrated, drop a comment below. Because what I'm about to tell you will make you question every family gathering, every backhanded compliment, every time they made you feel like you weren't enough. I grew up as the middle child in a family of overachievers. My dad, William Chen, built Chen and Associates from nothing into one of the biggest real estate development firms on the West Coast. My older brother Marcus followed the golden path, MBA from Wharton, joined the family business, married a lawyer, bought a house in the right neighborhood. My younger sister Sophia went the other acceptable route, medical school, residency, now a successful surgeon with her own practice. Both of them everything my parents wanted their children to be. Then there was me, the dropout, the disappointment. The one who threw away a full scholarship to UC Berkeley to chase some ridiculous dream in tech. The one who moved into a shitty apartment in Oakland and spent 4 years playing video games instead of building a real career. That's the story they tell anyway. The truth? I've been building something they could never understand. Something that's about to make their precious family business look like a corner lemonade stand. Growing up, I learned early that I was different from Marcus and Sophia. They were naturally competitive, ambitious in the ways my parents understood. Marcus started talking about business strategies at 12. Sophia was performing surgery on her dolls and planning her medical career before she hit high school. Me, I was the kid who took apart every electronic device in the house to see how it worked. The one who spent lunch money on computer magazines instead of food. The one who learned to code before I learned to drive. Alex is creative, my mom would say when people asked about her middle child, in that tone people use when they mean Alex is unemployable. She marches to her own drummer, my dad would add, which translated to she's going to end up broke and asking us for money. By the time I was 16, the pattern was set. Marcus got the front row seats at every school event. Sophia got the private tutoring and test prep courses. I got the leftover attention and hand-me-down expectations. When Marcus graduated summa cum laude from business school, they threw a party for 50 people. When Sophia matched into her top choice residency program, they took out a full-page ad in the local paper. When I got into UC Berkeley on a full ride for computer science, one of the most competitive programs in the country, they took me to dinner at Olive Garden and spent the entire meal explaining why I should switch to business or pre-med. Computer science is fine for a hobby, Alex, my dad had said, cutting his chicken parmigiana like he was delivering a verdict. But you need something stable, something real. Like their definition of success was the only one that mattered. I stuck with my major for 2 years, watching my parents' enthusiasm for my education fade with every semester that I didn't switch tracks. They stopped asking about my grades, stopped bragging about their daughter at Berkeley, started introducing me as our youngest, conveniently forgetting to mention Sophia. Then, in my junior year, I met Jake Morrison. Jake was a senior who'd already founded 2 startups that failed spectacularly. He was working on a third, some crazy idea about revolutionizing how people interact with digital content through AI-powered personal assistants. This was 2012, back when AI was still science fiction to most people. He needed a coder. I needed a purpose that felt bigger than collecting a degree to please parents who'd never understand what I was building anyway. When I told my family I was dropping out to join a startup, the reaction was exactly what you'd expect. "You're throwing your life away," my mother had said, tears in her eyes like I'd announced I was joining a cult. "This is the stupidest decision you've ever made," Marcus added, "and that's saying something." Sophia, ever the diplomat, tried a gentler approach. "Alex, honey, maybe you could finish your degree first. You know, as a backup plan. Like my dreams were so unreliable that I needed an escape route before I'd even tried. My dad was the worst. He looked at me across the dining room table of my childhood home and said the words that still echo in my head a decade later. "Fine, go fail. But don't come crawling back to us when this startup nonsense falls apart. You're on your own. So I was. I moved out the next week. Took my savings from summer jobs and birthday money, found a studio apartment in Oakland that barely qualified as habitable, and dove headfirst into building something that would change everything. The first year was hell. Jake and I lived on ramen and energy drinks, coding 18-hour days in a garage that doubled as our office. We pitched to every investor who'd give us 10 minutes, got rejected by everyone, and watched our bank accounts drain to nothing. The second year was worse. Jake's girlfriend left him. My laptop died, and I couldn't afford to replace it for 3 weeks. We got evicted from the garage and had to work from a 24-hour diner that let us camp out as long as we kept ordering coffee. But we were building something revolutionary. An AI system that could actually understand context, learn from user behavior, and provide genuinely helpful assistance instead of just following script commands. We called it Aria. My family had no idea what I was working on. They'd stopped asking after the first few failed fundraising attempts. At Christmas dinners, they'd ask vague questions about how my computer thing was going, then quickly change the subject to Marcus's latest promotion or Sophia's research publications. Alex is still figuring things out, became my mother's standard explanation when relatives asked about me. Still figuring things out. Like I was some perpetual adolescent instead of someone building the future. Year 3, we got our first real investor. A small VC firm took a chance on us for $500K in seed funding. It wasn't much, but it was validation. Proof that maybe Jake and I weren't completely delusional. I didn't tell my family about the funding. Why bother? They'd probably find some way to minimize it. Year 4, we closed our Series A $2 million from a major tech investor who understood what we were building. I put a down payment on a decent apartment, bought my first new laptop in years, and started paying myself an actual salary. Still didn't mention it at family dinners. Year 5, everything changed. Aria launched publicly and exploded. Not gradually, not slowly, overnight, we went from scrappy startup to the hottest AI company in Silicon Valley. Downloads hit 1 million in the first week. Tech blogs called it the future of human-computer interaction. 3 major companies tried to acquire us in the first month. Jake and I turned down every offer. We weren't building this to get bought out. We were building this to win. By year 6, Aria had 50 million users. We'd raised a Series B of $50 million. I was listed as Chief Technology Officer of one of the fastest-growing companies in the country. I still hadn't told my family. Why? Because fuck them. For 5 years, they'd written me off as a failure. For 5 years, they'd treated my dreams like a phase I'd grow out of. For 5 years, they'd acted like my life was somehow less valid than Marcus's corporate climbing or Sophia's medical career. I didn't owe them my success. They'd made it clear they didn't want to be part of my journey when they thought it was leading nowhere. But then Sophia got engaged. The engagement party was scheduled for a Saturday night at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. Black tie affair, 200 guests, catered by the same company that did events for tech billionaires and movie stars. My parents had spared no expense celebrating their daughter's achievement in landing a successful cardiologist fiancé. The invitation had arrived at my apartment with a handwritten note from my mother. Alex, please try to dress appropriately. This is important for Sophia's career. Even in celebration, they couldn't help but take a shot at me. I almost didn't go. What was the point? I'd show up in whatever formal wear I could find, endure 3 hours of passive-aggressive comments about my unconventional lifestyle, and listen to toast after toast about Sophia's accomplishments while being introduced as the daughter who works with computers. Then Marcus called me. "Hey, Alex," he said, his voice carrying that careful tone he used when he was about to ask for something. "I wanted to give you a heads up about Saturday." "What kind of heads up?" "Dad's been talking to some potential investors for a new development project. Big tech campus concept, mixed-use residential and office space specifically designed for startup companies." I felt my stomach tighten. Okay, he's invited some people from the tech world to Sophia's party, wants to pitch them on the project. I think he's hoping to finally break into the Silicon Valley development market. That's great for Dad. The thing is, Marcus continued, and I could hear the awkwardness in his voice, he's been using you as part of his pitch. What do you mean? He's been telling people that his daughter works in tech, that the family has inside knowledge of the industry. He doesn't really understand what you do, but he's been embellishing. Of course he was. So he's finally ready to claim me as his daughter now that it might be useful to his business. Alex, come on, don't be like that. Be like what? Accurate, Marcus sighed. Look, I just thought you should know. Maybe you could help him out. Tell him some industry insights he could use in his pitch. Help him out. After 6 years of dismissal, he wanted me to hand over my expertise so he could impress investors with his tech-savvy family. I'll think about it, I said and hung up. I spent the next 3 days thinking about walking into that party and playing the part they wanted me to play. The quiet daughter who works with computers and could provide some casual industry knowledge to help Daddy close his next deal. Then I had a better idea. I called Jake. How do you feel about crashing a family party? I asked. What kind of party? The kind where my father's going to pitch a tech campus development to Silicon Valley investors, without knowing that his black sheep daughter is about to walk in as the CTO of the company that's been dominating tech headlines for the past year. Jake was quiet for a moment. Then, oh, this is going to be fun. Saturday night arrived with the fog rolling in from the bay. I spent 2 hours getting ready. Hair professionally styled, makeup flawless, wearing a custom-tailored black dress that cost more than my rent used to, designer heels that added 4 inches to my height and about 10 years of confidence to my posture. I looked like success. I looked like power. I looked like everything my family had never believed I could become. The museum was transformed. Strings of lights turned the modern architecture into something magical. Waiters in black tie circulated with champagne and catered appetizers. The guest list was a who's who of San Francisco society: doctors, lawyers, business executives, and a healthy sprinkling of tech money. I spotted my family immediately. They were holding court near the main exhibition space, my parents flanked by Marcus and his wife Jennifer, Sophia glowing in an off-white dress. My father was in his element, gesturing expansively as he talked to a small group of well-dressed strangers. Even from across the room, I could see he was in full pitch mode. Alex, my mother's voice cut through the ambient conversation as she spotted me. She hurried over, her expression cycling through surprise, relief, and subtle disapproval. You look different, she said, taking in my transformation. Thank you, I replied, not bothering to clarify whether different was good or bad. Before she could respond, Sophia appeared at my elbow, radiant with engagement bliss. Alex, you made it. She hugged me genuinely, and I felt a pang of guilt. Sophia had never been the problem. Congratulations, I said, meaning it. Dr. Patterson seems like a great guy. Marcus appeared next, Jennifer trailing behind him. Alex, Marcus said, his greeting carefully neutral. Glad you could make it. Wouldn't miss it. Listen, he lowered his voice. Dad's been talking to some investors about that tech campus project I mentioned. If anyone asks what do I do, Marcus? He looked uncomfortable. You know, something vague about computers and technology. Nothing specific. Nothing specific. Because God forbid I complicate their narrative with actual facts. I'll handle it, I said. Alex, sweetheart. My father's voice boomed as he approached. You look wonderful, very professional, like he was surprised I'd figured out how to dress like an adult. Thanks, Dad. I was just telling the Hendersons here about our family's connection to the tech industry. He gestured to an older couple. My daughter Alex works in Silicon Valley. Not is successful in Silicon Valley or has built something innovative. Just works, like I was filing papers for someone important. How interesting, Mrs. Henderson said politely. What do you do there, dear? Before I could answer, my father jumped in. Oh, Alex is very technical, computer programming, that sort of thing. She keeps up with all the latest trends. Keeps up with trends, like I was reading TechCrunch instead of making headlines. Actually, I said, my voice carrying clearly, I'm the Chief Technology Officer of Aria AI. The name hit the group like a physical force. The Hendersons' polite interest transformed into sharp attention. Marcus's face went pale. My father's confident smile faltered. Aria AI, Mr. Henderson repeated. The company that just announced the $50 million Series B funding. That's the one. You're Alex Chen, Mrs. Henderson said, recognition dawning. I read about you in Forbes last month. The Forbes piece. The one that called me the quiet genius behind Silicon Valley's most promising AI revolution. The one my family had apparently never seen. I didn't realize. My father started, then stopped, clearly struggling to process this information. Realize what? I asked sweetly. That your company was. Successful, I supplied. Worth over $200 million in our last valuation, Employing 150 people across 3 offices. Yeah, it's been an interesting few years. The small group around us had grown larger. Other guests were gravitating toward the conversation, drawn by the mention of Arya AI and the obvious family drama unfolding in real time. Marcus found his voice first. Why didn't you tell us? Tell you what? About the company, about the funding, about any of it. I looked at him, really looked at him for the first time in years. When exactly should I have told you? At Christmas dinner, when you spent an hour talking about your latest promotion while barely asking how I was doing. At Dad's birthday party, when everyone toasted your new house while I sat there like furniture. Or maybe, at one of the dozens of family gatherings where my life was treated like an embarrassing footnote to your achievements. The accusation hung in the air between us. Around us, the party continued, but our little corner had become its own drama bubble. We always supported you, my mother said weakly. Did you? I turned to face her. When I dropped out of Berkeley to join a startup, you told me I was throwing my life away. When I moved to Oakland, you stopped including my address on Christmas cards because you were embarrassed about the neighborhood. When I tried to explain what we were building, you changed the subject. We didn't understand. You didn't try to understand. There's a difference. My father, recovering some of his composure, attempted to regain control. Well, this is wonderful news, of course. We're very proud. Stop. The word came out harder than I intended. Don't do that. Don't rewrite history now that my success is convenient for you. Alex, please, Sophia said quietly. This is my engagement party. She was right. I was letting years of resentment spill over onto her special night. You're absolutely right, I said, turning to her. I'm sorry, Soph, this isn't about you. I started to excuse myself, but a new voice interrupted. Alex Chen, the Alex Chen from Arya AI. I turned to see a man in his 50s approaching, expensive suit, and the kind of confident posture that screamed venture capital. I'm Robert Kim from Sequoia Capital, he said, extending his hand. We've been trying to get a meeting with your team for months. Sequoia Capital, one of the most prestigious VC firms in Silicon Valley. Mr. Kim, I replied. I didn't expect to see Sequoia at a family engagement party. I'm a friend of the Patterson family, he explained. When I heard there might be tech industry guests here tonight, I hoped to do some networking. I had no idea we'd run into Silicon Valley royalty. Silicon Valley royalty. I felt my parents' shock radiating beside me. Alex was just telling us about her company, my father said, attempting to insert himself into the conversation. As her father, I've been following her success closely. The lie was so smooth, so practiced, that for a moment I almost admired his audacity. Mr. Chen, Robert said, turning to my father, you must be incredibly proud. Arya AI is reshaping the entire AI industry. Yes, well, my father replied, clearly having no idea what he was talking about. Alex has always been gifted with computers. Gifted with computers. Like I was a precocious child showing off a science fair project. Actually, I interrupted, we're not looking for new investors right now. We're pretty happy with our current funding situation. It was a polite way of saying that Sequoia had missed their chance. Of course, Robert said smoothly. Your father was just mentioning some kind of tech campus development project. All eyes turned back to my father, who suddenly looked like a man who'd walked into the wrong conversation. Yes, he said slowly. I'm developing a mixed-use campus specifically designed for tech companies. Interesting concept, Robert said. Are you working with any existing tech companies on the planning? My father glanced at me, and I could see the question in his eyes. This was the moment where I could throw him a lifeline. Instead, I said, I'm sure Dad can handle his project on his own. He's been very clear over the years that he doesn't need input from his daughter who works with computers. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, my father found his voice. Alex, I think there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, I said clearly. You made your feelings about my career very clear years ago. You told me not to come crawling back when my startup nonsense fell apart. Well, it didn't fall apart. It succeeded beyond your wildest dreams, and you don't get to claim credit for it now. Marcus stepped forward. Alex, come on, we're family. Are we? I asked. Because for the past 6 years, I've felt more like an embarrassment you had to explain away at social gatherings. That's not fair, my mother said, tears starting to form. What's not fair is spending 6 years being treated like a failure when I was building something revolutionary. Jake chose that moment to appear at my side, having spent the first part of the evening mingling. Hey, he said softly. Everything okay over here? Jake Morrison, I said, introducing him. CEO and co-founder of Aria AI. Jake, this is my family. Robert Kim's eyes lit up. Mr. Morrison, the Aria AI story is remarkable. Alex is the real genius behind everything we've built, Jake said. I may be the face of the company, but she's the brain that makes it all work. As the tech industry guests dispersed, my family and I were left standing in our bubble of tension. Alex, Sophia said quietly, I had no idea. About any of it, I'm so sorry. Soph, you have nothing to apologize for. But the rest of us, she continued, looking at our parents and Marcus, we screwed up badly. Yes, I said simply, you did. My father cleared his throat. Perhaps we could discuss this somewhere more private. There's nothing to discuss. You made your choice 6 years ago when you told me I was on my own. I took your advice. I succeeded on my own. And now you want to claim some credit because it's convenient for your business plans. We're your family, he said, his voice carrying desperation. We love you. You love the idea of me now that I'm successful in a way you can understand and use. But you didn't love me when I was struggling. You didn't believe in me when I needed support. You wrote me off as a failure without even trying to understand what I was building. We want to make it right, my mother said. How? By pretending the last 6 years didn't happen. By suddenly acting proud of achievements you ignored. I don't know, my father admitted finally. But we want to try. It was the first honest thing he'd said all night. I looked at my family, really looked at them. My parents, who'd built their own success but couldn't see that I'd inherited those same qualities. Marcus, who'd followed their plans so perfectly that he couldn't understand why anyone would choose differently. Sophia, who'd found her own path but had never had to fight for recognition. Here's the thing, I said finally. I don't need your approval anymore. I stopped needing it years ago when I realized that your opinion of my life said more about your limitations than my potential. My mother flinched. But, I continued, I also don't need to carry around anger about it. You were wrong about me. You missed out on being part of something incredible because you couldn't see past your own prejudices. That's your loss, not mine. So what now? Marcus asked. Now I go back to my life, my successful, fulfilling life that I built without you. That's it, my father asked. After everything, you're just walking away. I'm not walking away. I'm choosing not to chase after people who only want to be in my life now that it benefits them. I turned to Sophia and hugged her tightly. Congratulations on your engagement, I'm genuinely happy for you. Alex, wait, she said. Will I see you again? Of course, you can call me anytime. The only thing that's changed is that I'm not going to pretend the past 6 years didn't happen to make everyone else comfortable. As Jake and I walked toward the exit, I heard my father call out. Alex, I'm sorry, I was wrong about everything. I stopped and turned back. I know you are, and I know you were. Can we try to fix this? I considered the question. Maybe, but it would have to be on my terms. No more dismissing my choices. No more treating my career like a hobby. No more expecting me to minimize my success to make you comfortable. My father nodded slowly. Those terms seem fair. We'll see, I said. Right now, I need some time to think about whether I want to invest in rebuilding relationships with people who showed me exactly how conditional their love was. And with that, Jake and I walked out into the foggy San Francisco night. How do you feel? Jake asked as we waited for the valet. Exhausted, I admitted. But also, free. Free how? Free from caring about their approval. Free from carrying around hurt about their dismissal. Free from pretending to be smaller than I am to make them comfortable. My phone buzzed with texts. Sophia, I love you and I'm proud of you. Marcus, I owe you a real apology. My mother, I want to learn how to be the mother you deserved. My father, you were right about everything. I showed the messages to Jake. Think they mean it? Does it matter? He asked. You've already proven everything you needed to prove. He was right. I'd spent 6 years building something incredible, not to spite my family, but because I believed in what we were creating. Their recognition was nice, but it wasn't necessary. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from my father. The gist: 3 investors from the party had called him, wanting to discuss partnerships with companies in the Aria AI ecosystem. Not because of his pitch, because of my reputation, I deleted the voicemail without responding. 6 months later, Jake and I announced that Aria AI had been acquired by Google for $1.2 billion. The news broke on a Tuesday morning. By noon, my phone was ringing nonstop with congratulations and interview requests. One of the calls was from my father. Alex, he said when I answered. I saw the news, congratulations. Thank you. $1 billion, he said, and I could hear awe in his voice. It's not about the money, Dad. I know, it's about what you built, what you created from nothing. He paused. I owe you an apology, a real one. You already apologized. Not properly. Alex, I spent years thinking that success had to look a certain way. When you chose something different, I saw it as failure instead of courage. I waited for him to continue. I was wrong about everything. Wrong about what you were capable of. Wrong about what your career could become. Wrong about you, and I'm sorry. It was the most honest he'd ever been with me. I forgive you, I said, and realized I meant it. Why didn't you tell us, when things started going well? Because I needed to prove it to myself first, I said. For years, you'd made me doubt whether my choices were valid. I needed to know that I could succeed completely independent of your approval. And now I know. My success doesn't depend on whether you understand it or celebrate it. And that means we can have a relationship based on who we actually are instead of who we think each other should be. 3 months later, I threw a party for everyone who'd been part of the journey. Early employees, supportive friends, mentors who'd believed in the vision. I invited my family. All of them came. They mingled with Jake and our investors, with the engineers who'd built our technology, with the sales team that had made us billion-dollar company. At one point, I found my father talking to Jake about natural language processing, not pretending to understand, just genuinely curious. Your daughter is brilliant, Jake was saying. She could see around corners in ways that saved us years of development time. My father nodded. I'm beginning to understand that. Later, Marcus approached me with a glass of champagne and an expression I'd never seen before, respect. I owe you an apology too, he said. For what specifically? For treating your dreams like a phase. For assuming my path was the only valid one. You were protecting the worldview you'd invested in, I said. I understand it, even if I didn't like it. Still, you were building something incredible, and instead of supporting you, I acted like you were embarrassing the family. As the evening wound down, I found myself on my apartment balcony, looking out over the city where I'd spent 6 years proving that my family's limitations weren't my own. Jake joined me, loosening his tie. No regrets? He asked. About what? Any of it, the years of struggle, the family drama, the choices that led us here. I thought about it, the years of ramen and sleepless nights, the constant rejection from investors, the painful distance from my family as I pursued a path they couldn't understand. No regrets, I said finally. Every part of it was necessary to get here. Even the family stuff, especially the family stuff. If they'd supported me from the beginning, I might have been tempted to play it safe, to build something they could understand instead of something revolutionary. My phone buzzed with texts. Sophia, thank you for including us tonight. My mother, I'm so proud of the woman you've become. My father, tonight I met my daughter as she really is, it was an honor. I showed the messages to Jake. Think they get it now? He asked. I think they're starting to, but honestly, it doesn't matter as much as it used to. Why not? Because I spent 6 years learning that the only approval I really needed was my own. Everything else is just bonus. We stood in comfortable silence, looking out over the city lights. Somewhere out there, millions of people were using technology that had started with an idea in a garage. My family's recognition was nice. Their regret was validating, but my worth wasn't dependent on their acknowledgement. It never had been. I'd proven that the girl they'd written off as a disappointment could build something that changed the world. Not to spite them, but because I'd believed in myself even when they couldn't. That was the real victory, not the billion-dollar acquisition, or the industry recognition, or even my family's belated respect. The real victory was knowing that I'd been right about myself all along. 3 years later, I'm building my next company. Another crazy idea that most people don't understand yet. My family asks about it now, genuinely curious instead of dismissive. But their trust isn't what drives me. Their belief isn't what validates my choices. I drive myself now. I validate my own choices. I know my own worth. And that's the most powerful feeling in the world. If you've ever been dismissed by the people who should have believed in you most, remember this: their limitations don't define your potential. Their inability to see your vision doesn't make it less valid. Build something amazing anyway. Prove them wrong by proving yourself right. And when they finally come around, when they finally want to claim credit for your success, remember that you don't owe them anything. You owe yourself everything.